Thanks for joining us on Mid-Morning this Thursday. It is almost time for the kids to start putting the backpacks on and picking up the homework.
Oh, man. New study shows that students in those early elementary school years are actually getting too much homework. In the worst case, researchers found children in the first grade had up to 3 times the workload recommended by education experts. As I said, we assure you this study was done by professionals, not by children. But it is interesting, they have this kind of 10-minute guideline where in kindergarten, you're supposed to have no homework. In first grade, 10 minutes. But Mike, the first graders in this survey, they were doing quite a bit of homework.
28 minutes, which I think is crazy.
That's a lot.
I can't think of a first grader having the attention span to do anything for 28 minutes. And you made a good point. A lot of them are just kind of learning to read.
Yeah, at that level, you think, what kind of homework? 30 minutes a day to a 6-year-old.
And isn't it more important at that age to be outside or socializing, doing some type of activity?
Picking your nose and eating it.
Right.
Right?
All the fun stuff.
It's a half an hour. It's a half an hour in the day. This feels a little bit to me like the same people that want everyone to get a trophy. We want it all to be very simple, and we're just complaining about too much homework. A half hour, is that
Have you started doing
big of a
homework
deal?
with your kids yet? Is
I'm
Henry
still doing
the
homework
newborn?
myself. That kid can't
That's
do anything.
where this is coming from,
What?
Matt.
Is this sour
You're
grapes?
just upset about how much calculus you're doing.
No, I like my homework. I want kids to do more.
More?
Well, yeah, half an hour.
You can come to my
Least-
house and do homework with my 2 kids.
Least
It's
fun
a
dad
lot.
ever. Least
It's
fun
a
dad
lot.
ever. Homework is fun.
Well, to be honest, I am actually looking forward to sitting down with my kids and doing homework with them, but I get that is not something that's going to be a reality or something that's possible for a lot of families.
Well, and that's what part of the study found is that there are certain families, especially poorer families or parents where English is a second language, or only a high school degree, really. They found only college-educated parents felt the most comfortable helping their kids with their homework long-term through school, and then there was no stress in the relationships there. But if they didn't have the education, then there was tremendous stress. Everybody hated the homework, and it was bad for the whole family.
If you think about 10 minutes of homework, 10 minutes would be about a 1-page first grade like math worksheet. Which to me, that seems like
reasonable.
that's enough, right? I mean, if you're doing 30 minutes of homework, basically you're probably doing like spelling and math, and you can see why teachers think like this is a good idea. Some parents want it. They feel like the homework means that the kids are learning.
I think back to some of the math homework for me maybe helped, but then I look back to maybe Spanish, which I still can kind of speak, but writing out 20 words, 20 vocab words as rote, I don't really think that does anything but waste time, to be honest.
Yeah, my concern would be that they're just doing additional homework to make up for the stuff that they're not learning in class. They're just teaching to a test and they're saying, hey, do this on top of it. That could be a bit of a problem.
Kids, you now have an excuse, so take that to
There
your
you go.
teachers when you go back to
much.
school.
Here at the Seattle Children's Research Institute, one woman is leading the charge on bullying.
That for a long time bullying was considered kind of a rite of passage. But what we know now from some of the research studies is that bullying is an event that is associated with significant health issues and even brain changes in cases of chronic bullying.
I spent the day with her, her team, and a group of brave kids hearing about how bullying has affected their lives and what they're doing about it. We begin with a special panel of experts, a researcher, an educator, and a mother of 3 teens. But first, we want to hear from an educational expert at state level. Here's what he had to say.
The most important, the most powerful protective factor you have to make sure your kids are safe online is talk to them. Have conversations. Then the other part of that is listen to them. Listen to what they're telling you, and then build that whole conversation around what are we all doing together to stay safe, keep our kids safe. So talking with the kids, talking with the adults, with the teachers, messages home to families, understanding what it is we're talking about, what it is we're doing, how you can help, how we can help you, how we can all support each other. It's got to be the larger community of everybody involved with that kid's life.
Ladies, thank you for joining us and being here today. I want to get right to it. Nikita, I'm going to start with you because you're a researcher. What's the research show about this situation today?
We know that bullying is associated with short-term and long-term consequences for both the person that's being bullied as well as the perpetrators. And so some of those consequences can be anxiety, depression, an increase in alcohol and substance use, lower grades, as well as just skipping school altogether.
Holly, you're an educator. How does the schools deal with the research that comes from what Nikita's just been talking about?
Real life bullying and online bullying aren't that different. It's really about behavior. It's not about the method where it's happening. So we really want to talk about behavior, but when it comes to the cyber part of it, we use technology for a lot of things. And so anytime we're working on a project that involves technology of any kind, there's a behavioral element to that we want to incorporate into the teaching. Like, well, how are we going to use this tool to communicate effectively? We talk a lot about the fact that once you have a screen in front of you and you're interacting in a digital format, you lose face-to-face conversation. You can't see someone's facial expressions. You can't hear the tone of their voice. You can't see if they're smiling when they're talking. You have to interpret what they're saying in a very different way when it's text only or when it's through some digital medium. So there's lots of opportunities in the work we do as educators. They give us a chance to talk about what's the behavior that we want to see in this space so that we give kids the tools to practice. What I like to talk to kids about is that whole idea of when you're in a group and you're in a situation where you're witnessing something. What is it about the group dynamics that make it okay for you to stand up and say something, or what might prevent you from speaking up yourself in that situation? What I like to do in lessons is to give them like role play exercises. Let's look at a situation and let's look at all of the different players in this situation. Well, what would we do at each step along the way to stop this from happening?
Shannon, you have 3 teenagers.
I do.
God bless you. How do you react in this environment? There's a certain trust you have to have with your children. I mean, children do keep things to themselves. How do you deal with that as a parent?
I think that the family values that we instill and start talking to our kids about when they're really young have a huge impact on how they're going to want to present themselves in an online situation, whether that's through text or social media. I also feel like having set times in the house where there is no phone. We have no phones at the dinner table. Phones are put away at a certain time. I do feel that being able to help your child have some adults in their life outside of their family that they feel like they can talk to is a huge benefit in a situation like that. It's not always fun to go to your mom if you have something that you are unsure of how to handle, but maybe being able to go to your teacher or maybe being able to go to your school counselor is a benefit for sure.
I'm curious because a lot of the time I think bullies are being bullied themselves. I think that's part of the reason this happens. You're nodding your head. As a researcher, is that something that you find?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that a lot of the kids who are bullies have been victims of bullying themselves. And so I think it's important in order to try to solve this issue, we not only just focus on just the bully themselves, but just the community as a whole. We need to be creating social norms that make it so that bullying is not okay in these spaces. So instead of just, focusing specifically on the one child that's being the bully or the victim, we need to create a community where this is just not allowed.
Ladies, thank you for joining me. And that was a lot of useful information. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you.
Organizing panel discussion and making decisions. A panel discussion is a public exchange of ideas, giving experts and audience members the chance to discuss a particular topic. Panel discussions are often used to delve into politics, issues affecting communities, and academic topics. Start organizing several weeks in advance if possible, so you can recruit participants and organize the event. Part 1. Putting a panel together. Select a topic. Ideally, the topic of discussion should be important to enough people that you can involve people with significantly different interests or backgrounds. However, avoid the trap of making a topic so general or vague that the discussion becomes unfocused. If you are having difficulty balancing these goals, remember the topic does not need to be divisive. Some panels are created to offer advice or information, and these do not always have competing points of view on display. Recruit varied participants. A panel of 3 to 5 people usually creates the most interesting discussion. Look for well-informed people from a variety of backgrounds. For instance, a member of the public involved in the issue, someone with experience working with the issue in a business or nonprofit, and an academic who has studied the issue. Create a panel with variation in age, gender, and ethnicity as well, as a person's personal background can have a significant effect on his perspective. Inviting at least 4 people may be safest, in case someone cancels at the last minute. Invite these people several weeks in advance at a minimum, to allow them adequate time to prepare, and to give yourself time to find alternatives if one of them turns the offer down. Invite a moderator. Select an additional person not participating in the panel discussion, to serve as a moderator. Ideally, she should already have experience moderating panels. Select someone who understands the topic well enough to follow the discussion, and who is skilled in social situations. The moderator's main purpose is to keep the panelists focused on the audience, keep the discussion running smoothly, and help out the panelists when they stall. Plan the physical setup. Individual chairs will make the participants appear closer to the audience than a solid table, encouraging audience participation. Arranging the seats in a slight circle, still mostly facing the audience, may help the panelists discuss the topic with each other. Include small tables or stands for holding notes, and provide a glass of water for each participant. Unless the room seats 30 people or fewer, provide at least one microphone for every 2 participants, and a personal microphone for the moderator. Consider seating the moderator in the middle of the panelists to help him address and guide each panelist efficiently. Keeping the moderator at a podium off to one side may make his job more difficult. Part 2, Planning the panel discussion. Figure out the goals of the panel. Make sure all of the participants know why the panel has been assembled well in advance, so they have time to prepare. Your panel may be trying to present practical solutions to a problem, host a complex, abstract discussion, or provide information on a topic. Let the panelists know whether the panel is a basic introduction to the topic, or whether they can expect the audience to be fairly well informed and looking for more advanced advice or nuanced perspectives. Decide how long the panel should last. For most panels, especially those taking place at a conference or other larger event, 45 to 60 minutes is the recommended length of time. If the panel is a standalone event, or if it covers a particularly important and popular topic, a 90-minute panel may be appropriate. If possible, ask participants to stick around for some time after the session, so audience members can talk in person. Consider starting with individual lectures, optional. The main focus of the panel should always be a discussion. However, if one of the panel's main goals is providing information, this may be a useful way to proceed the discussion. Have each panelist provide an explanation of the topic, or her argument concerning the topic, lasting no more than 10 minutes per person. This method may require more preparation time for the panelists as a group, as each panelist should build off the previous argument, rather than cover the same ground. Try to avoid visual presentations. Unless absolutely necessary for the topic, avoid PowerPoint presentations and slides. They tend to slow down the discussion, keep audience involvement low, and often bore the listeners. Use a small number of slides, and only when information or diagrams need to be presented that cannot easily be explained in words alone. If a panelist asks for permission to create a presentation, suggest he bring and show and tell items instead to pass around the audience during discussion. Write questions for the panelists. Try to come up with several open-ended questions, which the panelists can take in a direction best suited to the course of the discussion and their expertise. A few more specific questions directed at an individual panelist are also acceptable, but try to divide these among the panelists fairly evenly. Anticipate questions audience members might ask, and include these as well. Arrange these in rough order of most to least importance, as you should provide more questions than you expect to get through. Try to keep each question tight into the last, however, avoiding a sudden change of topic. Have the moderator or another person not on the panel look over your questions and suggest edits or additional questions. If you are having trouble coming up with questions, ask each panelist individually what he would like to ask the other panelists. Include the best of these questions on your list. Plan out the rest of the panel. Determine how much time you will set aside for questions. Typically, this constitutes half the panel's length or more. Use the last 20 to 30 minutes for audience questions and discussion. or 15 minutes if time is short or you have a more lecture-focused panel format. Introduce the panelists to each other in advance. Have the panelists meet in person or attend a conference call together, a week or more in advance of the panel. Describe the format of the panel to them, and give them a chance to talk briefly. They may briefly determine who should field questions on which topic, but don't give them specific questions in advance. The discussion should be original, not rehearsed. Part 3, Moderating a Panel Discussion. Convince people to sit in the front row. The closer the panel is to the audience member, the more energetic and involved the atmosphere will feel. Consider offering small freebies if people move to the front rows, such as buttons or candy. Briefly introduce the panel and each participant. Use only 1 or 2 sentences to introduce the panel topic, since most audience members present are likely familiar with the basic idea. Introduce each participant briefly, mentioning only a couple of relevant facts about her experience or involvement related to the topic. Avoid going into a complete biography. The introduction of all participants should take no more than 10 minutes total. Involve the audience early. Get the audience invested in the panel by asking for their involvement right away. A simple, quick way to do this is to begin by asking for a rough poll of their opinion related to the topic, using a show of hands or applause. Alternatively, poll the audience on their level of knowledge of the topic. The results should help you keep the panel focused on topics most relevant to the audience. Ask the panelists the prepared questions. Start going through the questions in the pre-arranged order, but don't hesitate to adjust this order if the discussion moved in a different, interesting direction. Divide questions among the participants, aiming them at the person most knowledgeable on the topic. Give other panelists a short amount of time to respond, then move on to the next question. Don't have every panelist weigh in on every question. Let the panelists respond naturally, when they have something to say, or prompt someone who is knowledgeable on the topic if the discussion is faltering. Follow through with your own questions as necessary. You may deviate from the prepared questions whenever you think it will benefit from the discussion. In particular, press a panelist with a follow-up question if you think his answer is unsatisfying. Try rephrasing the original question, or ideally, come up with a more nuanced question that ties the last response to another discussion point or a previous statement. Get a timekeeper. You may look at an actual clock off stage or on the opposite wall, if one is clearly visible. Otherwise, have someone stand at the back of the room with visible signs saying 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and 1 minute quote, holding these up as appropriate when you are nearing the end of a section. Keep the panelists on task. When a panelist is going on too long or going off topic, politely return the discussion to the correct point. When she pauses for breath, jump in with a phrase similar to one of the following. You may choose to let panelists know beforehand what phrases you'll be using to bring them back on track. You have an interesting point, but let's hear more about. Let's see what other panelists has to say on that topic, especially how it relates to. Collect questions from the audience. Let the audience know how you plan to recruit questions, for instance by calling on raised hands or inviting them to wait in line at a microphone. Listen to each question in turn, repeat it clearly so everyone in the room can hear, then refer it to a panelist who appears interested. Have a couple of backup questions ready to ask yourself, or have an assistant in the audience ask, in case no one is brave enough to ask the first question. If an audience member is taking up too much time, politely interrupt to say, so your question is blank, is that right? Or I'm sorry, we need to keep things moving. What is your question? Let people know when you only have enough time for 2 or 3 more questions. Thank everyone involved. Thank the panelists, the hosts and organizers of the event, and the audience members. Let the audience members know the location and topic of an upcoming event if you are at a symposium or conference.
Bullying is a behavior that's destructive to everyone, and the effects last a lifetime.
While approaches that simply crack down on individual bullies are seldom effective. Experts say when there's a school-wide commitment to raise awareness about bullying, form clear rules and strong social norms against bullying, and provide support and protection for all students, bullying can be reduced by at least 50%.
Let's see what our team panel has to say about the changing culture of violence.
From past experience with parents, teachers, and school administration, teens have little confidence that bullying situations are handled effectively if handled at all. We understand that learning how to respectfully deal with others is a major part of growing up. But if we don't get bullying under control, what is the future going to be like? So, how are adults part of the problem?
Well, I think mostly with adults, it's either one of two extremes. It's either they don't want to do anything about it because it's trying to make you stronger, or they're trying to take the whole situation into their hands and fix every problem with it. And when adults get into a lot of situations about bullying with kids, they usually end up making it worse for the victim.
A lot of adults are oblivious to the fact that bullying is even occurring. They just think it's the way of life. And I really honestly think that it's a very big problem, and if they don't get on it soon enough, we as adolescents would not be able to continue this way.
If adults or parents are part of the problem and they aren't willing to change, how hard is it for school officials to deal with the issue?
Well, I think you need the parents to back up the school officials. So if the school officials aren't there, then it's nearly impossible to stop bullying on their own. I mean, this is a two-front war, and you can't just do it in the school environment.
I just want to say, I think it's a lot up to the victim, because I mean, he's got to really stand up for himself. It's kind of like what Zach said, low his self-esteem, and I really think the parents should help their kid by giving them encouragement. But I really think it's a lot up to the victim himself to make sure that, I mean, he shouldn't let this kid basically ruin his life. It should, he should stand up for himself, because I mean, that's what a lot of people say, stand up for yourself.
Is standing up for yourself also letting an adult know what's going on? Is that part of standing up for yourself?
If you respect yourself enough to realize that there is a problem, then you can take the action necessary to get it solved.
I think it does matter how you resolve your problem, but can you really teach yourself to stand up for yourself? You have to have some type of guidance.
So what effective methods do you think adults can use to help kids deal with bullying and stand up for themselves?
What I was thinking is that it goes back to the school administrators thing, well, the whole school board type thing. All the extracurricular activities that I thought that schools used to have, like all the clubs, dramas, and all those types of things, I think those always help kids' confidence. And when you have kids that have confidence in themselves, it's easier to make friends that do those same things like those clubs. And the more people that are friends with each other, the less chance you have of being bullied. So maybe it's not just parents' fault at the time. Maybe some of these schools and people should start in outside activities,
I believe that high schools and middle schools and now elementary schools, they have a lot of little organizations that get students together, and just having that second family, just having those friends, that really helps a lot of people. Even if you're, the wallflower, you still have people you can relate to and people you can, say hi to in the hall.
So what do you guys think is the best way to help kids cope with the bullying situation at school? You sort of brought in some points about having more clubs. Should schools teach kids about morals and ethical behavior like discipline, respect, confidence, responsibility towards each other? Should that be a part of school curriculum?
I mean, I guess you can bring in the curriculum of teaching respect and such, but those that already do believe in respect and know how to do it won't take it, or already take it to heart. But those that don't take it seriously won't take it to heart, and they'll keep bullying. They'll just blow it off as whatever.
The kids who don't necessarily respect people outside of their home, maybe that's because they have a hard home life. Maybe because in their house it's fight with mom and dad to, survive. I mean, you don't know everyone's situation.
Yeah, you're supposed to listen to your teachers, but, sometimes you don't. But you always, or at least, should always tend to listen to your parents, even if they do, society, teaches them wrong things. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that kids are going to listen more to their parents than to a stranger in a classroom.
I totally agree with you on that, and that's why I think if we're going to teach them at a young age, then we should take it to the parents as well, not just the kids.
Should teachers be required to pass a course on conflict resolution as part of their accreditation so they understand how to deal with the situation?
I personally think teachers should get the accreditation, but to be honest, teachers are very biased. They like to side with the more popular crowd. You know, they don't want to go against the majority because they need their respect as well. So I think that if they establish that in the beginning of the year, that they are the dominant person in the classroom and get the accreditation to, solve any problems peacefully, then that whole problem right there could be eliminated.
It's motion, just like a river runs, it pulls out a little dirt at a time and it changes path. We've got to start pushing it a little bit so that the ball will get rolling somewhere.
So going back to schools, they do have bullying policies in place and they do have laws, but why are these policies not working?
Honestly, I could not tell you my school's first rule in bullying. I have no idea.
Our school believes in zero tolerance, which I know, right? Zero tolerance policy, and it is the worst policy I've ever heard of in my life because it does not work.
I think the problem why it's not working is no one wants to enforce the rules. No one wants to take that time and the effort. And when they do the time and the effort, the punishment isn't fitting the crime. It's picking up trash or staying after school.
Okay, so why do we feel the need to judge other people?
I think a lot of people they feel the need because they go, well, I'm going to, because maybe they feel a little bit insecure about themselves, as a person, and then they go, you know what, I'm going to look at that person and point out what they have wrong so I don't feel half as bad about myself.
I deeply believe that people bully other people because they're bored. They have nothing better to do. Because if you had something better to do, like you had to go somewhere, you wouldn't take the time to sit there and make fun of somebody. If you had something to do, like you wanted to do something, you wouldn't be thinking to make fun of another person, I think boredom manifests itself into violence. And violence isn't always violent as in physical violence. It's mental violence, it's emotional violence, it's verbal violence,
Adding on to what you said about they have nothing better to do, a bully, I think, when people are busy, they get into more stuff in their life. That really helps when kids are more active in their lives and make more of it, that they can even make even more of it by gaining new friends and not just gaining another enemy to bully or pick on.
Ever since, this whole program, Teens in Action, and we've been discussing the segment bullying, we've all become better people. We've discussed this fact and how much it affects others and how we affect others. And so, like us who have changed, we need to kind of spread the word. We got to eat the burger. We got to get that dirt out of the river. We got to get the ball rolling. We got to spread the word.
That's right. And I really appreciate all of you guys' comments tonight. And I hope that this discussion continues out into your schools and into your family and with your friends. So I thank you guys for being here tonight.
Directions. Read the following questions. Put your answer in your notebook. 1. What is the topic all about? 2. How many panels are present? 3. What is the major part of growing up according to the moderator? 4. How are adults part of the problem? 5. Why does someone do bullying? 6. What are the effective methods adults can use to help the bullied kids? 7. What do you think is the best way to help students cope up with bullying? 8. What should be the role of friends, parents, and teachers regarding bullying? 9. Who are the people involved in the panel discussion? 10. What have you learned in the discussion?
This is the summary of our topic. We can get information from various sources. Number 1, news report that is similar to a news article and is found in a newspaper. It has a certain structure called inverted pyramid. We have headline, who, what, where, when, why, and the how. Number 2, speech. It is a human communication using language. Under this, we have informative, demonstrative, persuasive, and entertaining. Number 3, we have panel discussion. It is a public exchange of ideas, giving experts and members the chance to discuss a particular topic.
Directions. Applied what you've learned in this lesson by choosing among the options below. Be guided by the following criteria on each option. Make your own news report about the current news in the Philippines. Watch any informative speech on social media platforms such as Facebook, YouTube and Instagram, etc. Write your own informative speech for the Filipino people. Organize your own panel discussion that contains decision-making. Task A. Making a news report. Submission 5. Grammar 10. Content 10. Relevance 10. Composition 15. Total 50. Task B. Recognize information from contextualized speech. 1. Who is the speaker? 2. What is the speech all about? 3. What line strikes you the most? Explain it. 4. Do you agree with the speaker? Yes or no? Why? 5. Does the speaker make a positive impact? How do you say so? Task C. Write your own informative speech. Submission 5. Grammar 10. Content 10. Relevance 10. Composition 15. Total 50. Task D. Organize panel discussion and making decisions. Submission 5. Content 10. Relevance 10. Presentation 15. Organization 15. Total 50.